Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran. I'm here on the Shadowlands beta right before our characters are gonna get wiped. So a lot of my guildies and friends are expecting for the Wednesday reset when all of our tunes, all our hard progress, all the characters we have fully geared out, enchanted, are all gonna be removed. But before we get removed, I did want to showcase this interesting new build that has come up. I know this is beta, so it's not something you can really test out, but this is kind of cool. This is actually really unique because it allows Destruction Warlocks to play more of a Fire Mage style playstyle, literally just casting fire-based spells with the help of a legendary. I messed around with this build on stream, and some of you guys were helping me out to construct this build, and I'm not going to get too much into the math behind it. However, I'll have a link down below in case you want to see. So when it comes to the math of this build, I think the credit needs to happen, and Kalamazi, who is another YouTuber, I never interacted with this guy before, but he does a lot of Warlock stuff. I've checked out some of his streams and videos, and he seems to be very informed on Warlocks. So if you're wondering of, who's going to be a Warlock main for PvE particularly, I have those link down below. In his video, he breaks down the exact math behind this and why it works, in case you want to check it out. But in today's video, I really just want to take a look at this build and how it works. So this is going to be my first time really putting it together and then trying it out. I have the general idea of how this is supposed to be played, and I messed around with this on stream before, but I never really knew which talents are the best. And with Kalamazi's video, there's a bit more information to it. Soulfire apparently is a really decent choice. It hasn't been a talent that a lot of people have picked in the past, so I'm kind of glad that it's getting some play. Reverse Entropy Inferno with Rain of Fire actually doing more damage as a dump for your soul shards instead of your Chaos Bolts. I know Chaos Bolts is like the bread and butter for Warlocks, but apparently this is going to be the better dump, with Rolling Blaze for the actual Fire Mage or Fire Destro damage with Channel Demon Fire as a talent. But what makes this run as a bread and butter also is the legendary effect where Conflagrate has an additional charge and its recharge time is reduced by 3 seconds. This allows you to maintain the Conflag playstyle and the debuff that you put on the enemy target basically almost all the time. Because Conflag and the amount of time that is spent there, it's pretty easy, and you can have ridiculous uptime of almost always. You will have some moments of gaps, but it's almost always up. Another thing to note with Destruction is some of your abilities have a little bit of a travel time to them. Like that Incinerate doesn't hit the enemy immediately, but as long as I have a Conflag right before it connects, or some of my other abilities like the Soulfire, for example, which has quite a long channel time, as long as it connects before the Soulfire hits, there is going to be now some sort of a damage increase to it. So it's interesting because of this delay for Destro abilities, you actually can line up kind of a fun combo, wombo looking thing. So that's what's really going to make this playstyle. A couple things. Legendaries will get a later time, but anyway, I wanted to try this build and kind of let you guys know if I feel like this is actually strong. Another thing that this would help for this build is if you are Necrolord Covenant. So if you're someone who wants to amp this even more, being Necrolord provides you an ability called Decimating Bolt. What Decimating Bolt does is it's a bolt that does a bit of shadow damage and increases your next 3 basic abilities that generate soul shards, makes them 200% stronger. Yours is Incinerate, so if you Incinerate into an enemy that's conflagged, your Incinerates are doing 3000 baseline damage. And if these crit, this I believe is more damage than a single Chaos Bolt, so that can give you quite a... so if those crit, they actually would do more damage than a Chaos Bolt. So yeah, this is actually quite insane. It's actually something that comes together, and it's a new talent that was added as Roaring Blaze with a change to Roaring Blaze. And Reign of Chaos is like the play. A lot of people want to drop down a bunch of soul shards and summon a bunch of Infernals, just like Battle for Azeroth. Grimoire Sacrifice, I doubt it'll get it that much use as Destro, maybe in some unique niche situations. But Roaring Blaze and a fire playstyle, this is so cool. Fire aspects of your Destro is generally just like an offshoot thing, it's an off-site thing. Mostly it's all about slamming Destro Chaos Bolts and summoning Infernals. At least that's how it felt for this last expansion. But in Shadowlands, there is potential for this spec to actually do fire damage. Okay, so I really want to give this a bit of a go with the playstyle. So it seems that in the opener you want to go for a Soulfire into a Conflag, and then into Channel Demon Fire, which is Shadow Flame damage. A portion of this damage is fire damage. And then you can drop down your Infernal. I'm actually messed up and I didn't drop down the Infernal at all. And you can go for a Decimating Bolt into Rain of Fire. And you really want to make sure you're getting Rain of Fires off just because you're going to be generating a lot of resources. So you're trying to kind of min-max the value of your damage. And you are trying to use abilities like Channel Demon Fire on CD whenever possible, Rain of Fire on CD whenever possible if you have way too many resources. And the general playstyle would be just to maintain your damage for as much as possible with this Rain of Fire, the Infernal generating all those soul shards in order to get even more fire damage into the enemy. And that's really it. That's a pretty simple playstyle. And the idea would be before Soulfire and before Soulfire, we would try to see if we could put in a conflict rate in there too. But maintaining this damage is actually quite easy. Like for example, I'm gonna go for a Decimating Bolt into one more Incinerate, and I have one charge of Backdraft, so I don't need to worry about anything. Get a couple of those Incinerates in there to do a bit of damage, and to get a new Immolate in. Try to make sure I maintain my debuff prior to spend the Soul Shards while I have them. And we're gonna do just one more Conflag into a Channel Demon Fire, and at least one more Incinerate before this. So yeah, this is actually, I mean, you can see the debuff is there. It's doing stuff. The fact that there's some delay to Warlock abilities does make it a little bit easier to mess around and try out this build. So you would think that it would be like very, very serious on the timings. And the damage I'm putting out at like no gear, it's actually considerable. I mean, I'm about 2k DPS with Incinerate. Look at all this fire damage. It's so cool. No Chaos Bolts, no nothing. Rain of Fire actually being competitive as an ability to spend your Soul Shards. Channel Demon Fire is quite close. And you would think that actually certain talents here would actually play a little bit better. Of course, you don't need to take Soulfire all the time. A Soulfire I think would be really good for single target. The damage it can do is quite awesome. This is a normal hit, so if it crits, imagine that 7k hit as a crit. That would be nutty. But you can also go Flash over, Circle Flag, deals more damage and grants additional charge of Backdraft. That could synergize. Eradication obviously wouldn't. Technically, you can make Shadowborn work because that is Shadow Flame damage, but I found this ability weird to press. Just as is. Cataclysm could technically work too, but with Inferno, apparently just Rain of Fire is just the best ability in this row because of the dump. You need something to dump all your Soul Shards for, so just dropping Rain of Fire on an enemy with Inferno buff, it's actually quite good. And the fact that this has 20% chance to generate Soul Shard, well, I mean, it kind of feeds back into itself. You get a way to get rid of these Soul Shards so you're not sitting on them, and then it generates some more Soul Shards for free, especially good maybe in AoE situations. Now, I don't know how good this build would be in the pure AoE, but it could be okay. Swap Soulfire for Flashover so you can have more Conflags and multiple enemies with Havoc. Get yourself the big Decimating Bolt and couple Incinerates into 2 targets at once, with Decimating Bolt giving you that beefy damage uptime. Channel Demon Fire can be really good for putting Immolates on multiple enemies. Roaring Blaze, of course, the debuff. And then Inferno, having a bunch of enemies, especially if they're stacked on top of each other, could be quite value damage. But this isn't like a serious build or anything. This is just a build that was recently discovered on the beta and could have potential for the playstyle. As for the stats that I would play with this build, definitely haste. Definitely the more haste you can get, the more, because most of my damage is Incinerate, the more cast you can get of those Incinerates, the better. I would think Critical Strike would also be nice here too, because you don't have any ability to guarantee hit anymore, or crit anymore, since you don't have Chaos Bolts as a playstyle. So anything that would just beef up the damage of this fire would be nice, but also these abilities. Do you actually want crit? Let's be honest. Crit gives you Soul Shards, and you don't really have anything to spend Soul Shards on except for Rain of Fire. Rain of Fire does seem like a good portion of your damage. And I guess general more Soul Shards isn't a bad thing. Getting more crits is not a bad thing. But maybe something like Mastery for more. I know it's a bit of this RNG of 16% more damage and plus or minus 16 on top of it. Can vary. Maybe just going straight up versatility and haste might be the go-to, or maybe you just go blazing it, and maybe the haste won't really be as big of an issue for this build because of the delay on your abilities, and the haste is only necessary for Conflag maybe up to a certain point to make sure that you can maintain the uptime at all times. Because how long does the debuff last? Debuff lasts for 8 seconds, I think. I believe, yeah, 8 seconds, and the cooldown is 9.3. So if you can get enough haste to get us down to about 8 point something haste. Again, there's a bit of delay with your abilities, so you don't need to make sure it's perfect on it. There's going to be some abilities you're going to have a long cast for, so you could get this back. So maybe there's definitely going to be some haste cap, but as for stats, I wouldn't be able to even figure out. Hell, I wish we had more gear on these characters so I could actually try a variety of different stats and see which one of them is going to be the strongest, but as of beta we have right now, there's really not a lot we can do. And I also wish I had Bloodlust here just so I could show you the full might of this build with a full setup, but let's try it again. Let's just try this build again. So we're gonna go for a bit of that Soulfire with a Conflag in the opener, with a Channel Demon Fire. We need to make sure we get rid of all these soul shards, and then summon the Tyrant. We're gonna go for a Decimating Bolt so we can get some massive damage in. One Incinerate, second Incinerate, third Incinerate. Making sure that we have Rain of Fire rolling and the debuff is up at all times. And we can get another Rain of Fire in there while we're at it. Into another Incinerate. We got Channel Demon Fire up, so we want to use it immediately. And we're just going to try to maintain the amount of fire, or amount of soul shards we have at quite low, since we have the Infernal building quite a bit of it. And what will this build, it seems you would want to do is you want to min-max conflict rate, even though everything in my body when I'm playing Destro Warlock tells me I need to min-max the value of my damage by going for a conflict rate to speed up the cast of my next ability. You can't do that to yourself as a Warlock. You actually cannot do it with this build. You have to take it a little bit easy. Just maintain this debuff rather than maintain the uptime for your buff. We're gonna get ourselves another fire. We need to get ourselves an Immolate. It would have been better if I actually pressed Immolate then Conflag by the looks of it. We're gonna go one more Incinerate into a min-max and debuff with a little bit of that Channel Demon Fire. We still have enough soul shards so we can just get a few more casts in. And Rain of Fire, making sure we are good on this front. We gotta get Immolate back up and running very, very soon. We're gonna do that right here with a Conflag right after. We do have Soulfire coming up very, very soon. So what we'll do is we'll actually make it rain and go into Soulfire, into Conflag, into a Channel Demon Fire, which will also refresh our Immolate. That'll be really good. We can go for maybe more Rain of Fire, or we should go for a Decimating Bolt into a big damage with our 3 Incinerates. And then we'll make it rain as well with Fire. Conflag again. And just continue the damage with a quick Immolate in between. Couple more Incinerates. We can kind of like one more Incinerate go, and we can really Conflag it to make sure it's debuffed for extra damage. And more Incinerates right after. Yeah, so this is a playstyle that actually works really well. I'm surprised with how much damage it's putting out. I mean, after you burst, a lot of your damage is going to be gone as normal with a lot of classes. But with this one, the damage seems to be kind of competitive to an extent, right? To an extent. But it does have a little bit of this loop. There is certain abilities that kind of like line up together. There is chains for abilities available here. So this is pretty cool. Gonna make a Rain of Fire happen here again with a Conflag at the end of this. And we will need to Immolate with another Incinerate. We got ourselves the Channel Demon Fire, which is a good ability. We do want to press it. I wonder if this Warlock is trying a similar build. Potentially. Maybe this is going to be like a meta. It's very, very exciting to see this build just kind of come out of nowhere, really. And it's really, really cool. It's always been, I think a lot of Warlocks been trying to see if they can make this fire playstyle work in some fashion or another. And now that you're able to do that legitimately, this is actually super exciting. With the Infernal, we actually have quite a bit of damage available, so we're just going to continue on. As you can see, one of the things I like about this build is how consistent it feels. The damage feels more sustained based rather than forcing out that massive amount of Chaos Bolts back to back. There is definitely bursty situations with this build, that's for certain. But it doesn't really feel like it's all about mashing your keys, just trying to max out the amount of damage you can do with all your Chaos Bolts. So that's what I really like. It really changes the pacing of the Warlock spec. This is really cool. I think this is the first build that I've ever done on Shadowlands beta and or alpha that's been like a weird build. And I know this is still early beta. Literally Blizzard could kill this build before it's released. I really hope they don't. I really hope they kind of maintain it. And I actually have a little bit of an issue here. I mismanaged my conflict rates here a bit, so I had to delay Soulfire by a hair here because I wasn't really able to get the most amount of value on damage. I'm gonna make it Rain of Fire here. Conflag, so we can get ourselves some buffs built up. Not something you can actually do with Conflags. You might be able to, say, hit Conflag and then use other abilities besides Incinerate in order to store up a couple charges. But yeah, the uptime on this debuff is actually quite high, I'd say. It's definitely not the highest. I definitely could be playing this a little bit differently. With better stats, this would be so much easier. Like just a little bit of, just a hair extra haste, it would feel good. There's also a little bit of this desync that I keep getting a bit with Soulfire. where I will reapply a fresh immolate, and then Soulfire is available very, very soon. So figuring out the best time for you to drop a Soulfire or to refresh immolate is going to be a key important thing in this build. And now it looks like I'm actually kind of running out on conflags or potential conflags. So what I could do is, this is where a perfect time for Decimated Bolt to come in while I'm waiting for my damage to be available. With a 1 immolate here real quickly. And yeah, there goes like that downtime a little bit of not having a conflag available. So we'll channel Demon Fire here. So being very, very careful, at least in the beta, is going to be important in terms of managing this build. But once you get the rotation and the flow going, then I think you're going to be in a decent spot. And with a bit extra stats, of course, would be much, much easier. But yeah, this is actually really fun. This is really cool. I'm actually enjoying this a ton. What we're going to do here is go for a Soulfire into immediate Rain of Fire, into immediate Channel Demon Fire. And maybe we should just end the build right here, because the damage, we've gotten quite a bit of numbers. Rain of Fire ends up being quite a bit of damage, actually, in comparison to like the rest of the filler abilities. Incinerate, of course, is going to be my top ability. When it crits, it can hit for 6k, quite a bit. Your Soulfire can crit for 11k, which is quite a decent number. Your pet doing quite a bit of damage as well, at least currently on the beta. They might shift this around. Dot doing this quite a bit. Conflagrate is doing quite a bit. Channel Demon Fire is a good filler damage as well. And Rain of Fire also good filler. I mean, there's probably opportunity for you to change it up and get Chaos Bolts into the playstyle as well, in one way or another. But if you're trying to min-max the fire damage, this works out pretty well, at least from what I've seen. You know, there's certain classes that I play on the beta, and I don't really have too high of expectations for like the damage they put out. And I could totally see this build, because with barely any gear available, if I had enchants, if I had consumables, you really could crack some real numbers, some actual numbers. With a Bloodlust, you could get some real damage out. With a Priest PI, that could be also really strong. And just having better stats, I could totally see this build doing a lot better. I play a lot of classes on the beta and a lot of specs, and it's really easy to see, I think, from my experience on here, which specs are looking really good so far. Early beta hasn't been balanced out yet, but so far, if we were to, let's say, export the classes as they are into live and see what happens, so far I'd say this build is actually really, really good. Some of the other ones I've seen are really good in comparison to like Elemental Shaman. What's not a bad spec, it's just currently right now it's really rough around the edges. I'd even argue the Balance Druid might be even a little bit rough. And for Destro Warlock, the normal playstyle is just fine. But this fire-based playstyle does seem kind of cool. I'm actually a huge, huge fan of this type of thing. Glad that Blizzard added some sort of a talent. I really hope that this at least becomes a niche playstyle for someone to play. Maybe if you're not looking for a bursty cleave situation, just a single target, burn everything to the ground kind of deal. And this is really, really cool to see some of the different builds this early in the beta coming out. And hopefully this will be something that people will actually continue playing once Shadowlands is out. As long as Blizzard does justice to this build in terms of the balancing. When it's a build with not too many abilities, it shifts your playstyle for Destro slightly. Less Chaos Bolts if you were tired of Chaos Bolts from Battle for Azeroth. Because it seems that all you did is stack Expedient and Haste and slam your head on the Chaos Bolt button the whole game. But yeah, I really like this playstyle. This has been really fun, and I want to showcase it in this video. Thank you guys so much for checking it out. Let me know what you think about the Fire Destro playstyle. This has been absolutely enjoyable. I actually had a lot of fun. This is something I would even want to test into dungeons, but hopefully with the reset and character wipe, I'll be able to recreate this one way or another with this legendary. But this seemed like a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Check out Kalamazi's video if you want to see the math behind why this build works. And I'll see all of you guys in the next one.